Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm back with the final video that I'm going to be doing on Blackhorse. We're going to jump right back into where we left off. I do want to touch on one thing that I had realized I messed up on. I had not been rolling on the 11th ACR snafu table because in my mind I'm going, okay, well they're green, and green on a 10-sided die, you're not going to hit anything with it. There's no possibility, right? 1 through 10 for the snafu table on green is no effect. Forgot about the fact that they are lightly engaged, which gives them a +2, which means they could have been having something bad happen. Not a huge chance, but a small chance of something bad happening to them. So I should have been rolling over here once they started shooting. That was my mistake on that. I should have annotated it on the previous video, but if I didn't, I'm making sure I'm mentioning it now. That way you guys know that that was my goof on that. Make sure you do keep that in mind. Lightly engaged is when you're just doing the shooting, and then you flip it over to heavily engaged. Heavily engaged also means that when you issue an order, it costs 2 on this track versus the 1 that it would cost. Heavily engaged means you are shooting and being shot at. So once the Soviets start firing at the 11th ACR's units, they will be considered to be heavily engaged. Same +2 modifier, except it will be costing them 2 orders on here. I don't think the Americans are going to get too many more shots off because they'll get real high and bad things can start happening. So I want to shy away from that. Now, thing that I did want to show is I did want to have some Soviet combat going on here, fire a little artillery, let you guys see how all that plays out. And we left off, I do believe, with the 11th ACR doing Val stuff. And actually, I just thought about it. Would they count as heavily engaged? They haven't shot, but they are being shot at. So I wonder if the Soviets are heavily engaged now. I need to check that. All right. I went ahead and checked it just to make sure, and I am correct. I should have marked them down as heavily engaged, which would have made a slight difference. They would have been getting a +2 modifier again. Would have been a small chance, but it would cost them 2. So that does matter. So the 45th and the 11th are heavily engaged at this point. So now it costs them 2 when they're issuing orders. Same thing as the 11th ACR. So they're going to start burning up these orders. Now, we've done the 11th ACR, so we're good with them. And here's what I want to do. I want to take these guys out of March so at least they can get some shots going. They'll still be in tactical, but we'll deal with the -2 modifier. So we're going to, for our last playthrough bit, we're going to take them out of March. The 11th ACR is going to get to activate again. And then we're going to get some shots going with the Soviets, where they shoot and do their little thing, but they will have that -2 modifier because they will be in tactical, because I won't have the chance to deploy them. It would take another round. Oh, let's see. It would depend, because I wasn't going to take the 11th ACR up past 8 at the most, and it would put them to 9 to activate twice. So yeah, because they're lightly engaged. Now they haven't gotten shot at yet, so okay. Anyway, let's do that. Let's do this one step at a time here. 211th, they are activating. They are issuing a movement order, and that's going to put them up to 4. And that's putting them up to 4 because of the heavily engaged, which means they do have to roll on the table, which is my die. All right, so let's roll for them, see what they get. They got a 3. 3 is nothing, so don't have to worry about that. Now, that takes them out of March. But, like I said, they are still in tactical. So that means they're still kind of moving. They're not fully moving. They're not deployed. They're not dug in, ready to stick and move, but they are able to do some attacks here. Now it goes back to the 11th, and then we go to the Soviets. And if I shoot with the 11th again, all right, so they're at 5 now, but now they're in 11. That'll bump them to 7. And I think I'd probably stop there, issuing orders, because 2 for each one, it'll start adding up. If I stop there at the end of the round, it brings them all the way back down. If I go up any further, I'd be into orange, and they wouldn't get all the way back down to the base of it. So we'll do one more round of firing, and I'll tell you what, I'm gonna speed through this, put this in fast forward, and we'll pick back up with a Soviet activation, because I want to shoot with them some. I want to show you guys them, and especially I want to do some shooting with some artillery, some HE, let you guys see how that goes. So the 11th is going to activate. They're going to bump up to 7. They're on the yellow track, and they are getting a +2 for the lightly engaged. They're still lightly engaged. They haven't been shot at yet. They got a 2, so 2 brings them up to 4. There's still nothing. But we are starting to have the greater possibility of units being disrupted, low ammo markers, which are hugely bad for modifiers. 2 units disrupted, 2 units low ammo, and then the max there's HQ strike. So your HQ could have a strike against it. So you don't want that. All right, this part, I'm going to fast forward through. We'll do attacks again with these helicopters. Probably one of these helicopters. I think he has 1 missile left. They don't have any, and they don't have anyone in range of their HE. So it can only be this helicopter and then these 3 guys shooting down over here. So we'll do all that real quick, and then we'll pop back over to the Soviets. Oh, and before I start, I still remember, these guys are out of March, so they're not getting that huge negative modifier, or a positive modifier rather, for the Americans. But the 10th and the 45th are still in March, so they're going to get messed up. All right, let's run it. All right. We're ready to pick this back up where we had left off. The 11th ACR has activated, and few interesting things happened. One, I had 2 critical misses up here. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Just 2 flat out misses. But one, I was hoping I would get this HQ over here, but he did not get hit. I couldn't even fire the last missile at him because he's a soft target. The HQs are considered soft targets, so it's just the HE value versus using a ATGM on him. So didn't have to worry about that. I think we lost our missile up here. Yeah, all helicopters have expended all munitions, and he missed. They missed some. The guys down here, the Bravo and Charlie Company and Delta down here, they did really good. This guy obliterated the tank, just took out flat out one of their recon vehicles, not just off the board, as in you're not reconstituting, you're not coming back. And I think we had another one over here that, one more over here got hit with a 2D result. So he can be reconstituted as a half value and come back later, but boom, just blown up. That recon vehicle going down was really, really good. But they still have 1 full value and 2 half value tanks left here to get stuck in, and then everything back over here ready to get activated. And now we're out of missiles. We don't have any missiles left here. These guys have missiles left, and I'm going to have to move them up. Well, I mean, this is the end of the video I'm going to be playing, but they've got missiles left, so they might, as a good movement, come around over here to try to fire those missiles into this incoming 45th to try to at least do some type of damage, because the stuff that was coming in on the rear, helicopters just leveled it, just took it out. The FSC HQ, it's still there, but I mean, it can't do anything on its own, so it can probably just run away, try not to die. These guys are now opened up, though, that they can come in and engage, and at least I can have a vehicle over here trying to block them off. Maybe park right here on this road near where the river and the bridge are. All right. Keep them from coming around, try to slow them down a little bit, have a wall. But there's still just overwhelming forces. Now it's going to start turning in the favor of the Soviets, or it would if we kept playing this out. I guarantee it'd start turning in the favor of the Soviets because all the big munitions have been spent. And the 11th ACR is pretty low on the ability to issue orders. They might issue a few more. And something neat about this game, though, is let's say I was playing heads up with someone. I could pass, and the Soviets could take another turn, but then I could choose to go again. The turn doesn't end until both players pass consecutively. That's when the turn ends. So you can, push it a little bit, kind of respond to your enemy's actions. Now, 11th ACR is done. We are going to activate the 211th. So they're going to bump up by 2 because they're heavily engaged. And we got to roll for them. What are they going to get? They got the 5. A 5 plus 2 put them a 7. Nothing. Just one off. There's one disrupted result below that, but they did not get it. So now they can fire with all these guys that they've got pinned around. And I wanted to start with the HE up here, this onboard artillery, because we haven't done any artillery yet. It's offboard. And call in some. They do have offboard artillery. Damn, they've even got helicopters. I forgot about that. I should have brought those in with a movement order because they were doing movement orders. Oh, I so forgot about that. The Soviets, the 211th have some helicopters, some Hinds they could bring in that have their own missiles, and they have some offboard artillery assets, just like they have some of these onboard towed assets as well. Really, really cool stuff. The Soviets just raffle stomp once they get moving. But we're going to do that just so we do some artillery. These guys are going to fire. There's a stack of 3 HE guys, right? And these guys have a HE value of 8 and a range of 6. They are pretty beefy. So 3 of them, there's 3 of them, right? Yeah. 3 of them all stacked together. That brings us up to 24. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there. These guys are on a Woods Hex. That's going to save them some. But they don't use their inherent defense. They use whatever the defense is here. Remember, there is one little typo there. That's a 12. It's not 12. It's supposed to be -2. But for Woods, the HE defense is 5. Cool part about this, though, is HE has specific targeting. It will eliminate soft targets only if it's like HE from units that are on the board, but artillery units can eliminate hard units, so like tanks, with their HE. However, if there was other soft units in this hex that I'm targeting, those soft units would have to incur the losses before the hard targets could start take losses. Here, we only have them, so it doesn't matter. So 24 minus the 5 is 19. There's no way to miss short of rolling the 9. I don't think anything else is going to matter. They do get the -2 for tactical mode, but that's not going to matter because they have such a high value. They're not low. Artillery firing at hard targets. That is artillery firing at hard targets. So that'd be another -2, but we're still so far above 10, it doesn't matter. The only way they can miss is by rolling a 9, so not gonna matter. No! I wanted the Americans to take at least one loss. Nothing. You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. This critical miss column here. God, I hate that column. I hate that column. There's no way. I was like, maybe that dash means just eliminated, but I don't think it does. I don't think it does because it's a dash. It would have a 3D because 3D is critically eliminated. Yeah, I looked again just to try to make sure, and it didn't say anything about that. So it has to be a critical miss column. All right, that means everyone else can shoot who has range. I might bunch some of these up. These guys have a range of 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they're just out of range. These guys are not out of range, though. There are 3 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they can each fire. They have orange values, which means we'd be subtracting the orange value there. Oh, but that tactical, though, that tacticals make a difference because tactical is that -2. So 11 minus 6 is 5, but you have to subtract 2 for that because they're still in tactical mode. Brings that down to a 3. So this is where they're going to have a hard time hitting. There are 3 fully powered tanks here. Oh, their range is only 3 hexes. It's not 4. No, they're just out of range, so they don't get to shoot either. Shit. Shoot. Crap. I'm chuckling over here. God, all this work and the Soviets aren't going to get to fire much of anything. Yeah, they are just out of range. They're in range of the helicopters, but they don't have anything they can fire at the helicopters. All right, that means only the units over here are going to be able to fire. And yeah. Okay, well, this is a problem because this one's a half step. And then the one below that's full. 8 minus 6 and then minus the 2 means he can only hit on a 0. All right, so this first one can only hit on a 0. We'll fire. We'll see if he can get it. Maybe he will get lucky. Come on. We need a 0. We need a 0. Got an 8. That's a mess. The one below this, he has a firepower of 11. 11 minus the 6 for the defensive value brings him down to a 5. And then again, minus 2 for tactical mode puts him down to 3 or under. So 0, 1, 2, or 3 will hit here. It's not just the 10. The 10 isn't 10 in this game. The 10 is 0. So we can hit, what's 40% chance? That's not too bad. That's not horrible. 2, you got something. Finally. 2 on the AP table is a single step loss. No, they took a hit. So they have been reduced. Ooh, and that is a big drop in firepower too. Their AP, their tank shells dropped from a value of 9 to a 6. And that ATGM value, when they get flipped over, goes from an 18 to a 12. I mean, 12 is still really high, but it's 6 difference. That's big. All right, so both these guys are fired. We got this guy. He's another one that can only hit on a roll of a 0. And I just noticed there's a little bit of force right there, which we could say that's blocking. But considering I've been letting the Americans shoot, we're going to let him shoot back. And besides, he could shoot like along that little hex line there. Still get a hit. Doesn't matter. All right, come on. Give me a 0, boy. Give me a 0. 0! 8. God, they both got an 8. They both got 8. That's a mess. And can he fire anything that could hurt him? I don't think so. Yeah, because his AP value is a 4. It's an anti-air vehicle, and I don't think there's anything lightly armored enough. He could hurt the HQ or he could attack the helicopters, but his value is just not high enough to do that. Damn. And he does have an HE value, but that HE value wouldn't matter anyway. Even if he could attack the tank, which he can't, he'd have a 6 minus 6 and then -2 for the tactical mode. So again, yeah, no good. No joy, no love. You know, all that for a single step loss on the Americans. Damn. The Americans are good. They're dug in. They're able to hold out. But once they start taking these step losses, they will add up. Plus, like I said, there's multiple tanks back here, and they have the recon vehicles back here with their big missiles, and they only have a range of 4, so they don't have the range either. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, just one hex. No. Oh, I wish they were closer so I could get some more shots off. Oh, but yeah, we'll cut it there. That's all the shots that they can make, at least with the 211th. It will go back to the Americans. And honestly, at a 7 right now, their HQ value is an 8. right? Oh, and I do need to flip them over to heavily engaged since they are now taking fire. And that does make a difference. So the Americans, with their being heavily engaged, they would be getting the +2 on the snafu table. They're already yellow. And then moving twice on this as well. So they would go from 7 to 9. That's starting to bring them into the orange range where it's very likely that they are not going to have good results. They're going to start having bad things happen like low ammo, HQ strikes, counter battery strikes, disruptions, or even just being flat finished. And if they get a finished result, right, and there's a lot of finished results over on the red section of it, that means that they're just done. Like, it is effectively, you've passed, you're done, you're not playing anymore this turn. You got to play next turn, which would just give the Soviets free reign. So anyway, that is the basics of Blackhorse. So, yeah, I do have to apologize. I know I missed a modifier or two, and I should have been rolling. That I'm kicking myself for on the snafu table earlier on with the ACR, the 11th ACR, but I did forget that they were engaged, and that gave them a +2, which would have potentially caused them to cause a bad result, but not a huge deal, not a huge likelihood of happening. But at least this way, you guys can see, how the game plays. When it comes to the game itself, I gotta say you get a good amount of game in here. This really does kind of give me that like NATO feel, that Third World War feel. It feels like a bigger game than it is. This is a relatively small map. There's not a huge volume of units, but when you actually start getting the units on the board and start moving them around, it feels bigger. It feels like there's more going on here than just this small footprint game. And like I said, this is nowhere near all the units. The Americans have a buttload more units that come on later. Again, this is the kind of signifying that they don't start with a lot on the board, but they start reinforcing, as the battle commences. The Soviets do get a huge initial push, but they've only got about double what they've got available here to come on. So they hit with a lot, but they start taking losses relatively quickly in the game. The game, again, though, it comes down to these two player aids. This is really what is setting this game apart. There are plenty of Third World War games out there. There's plenty of games out there where you can chuck dice and move counters and have that Third World War 80s feel to it, right? There's plenty of those games. This is the magic. This is the sweet spot when it comes to this game, and it is the fact that you have these assets that you get to attach to your units, like the helicopters. The helicopters were the key thing for the 11th ACR. If it wasn't for them, they wouldn't have had any chance of really holding back this tide. However, those helicopters are victory points in this scenario. That's something you got to remember too. Each one of those is worth 4 victory points. So if I had decided to deploy them, somewhere else off map for a different part of the battle, I would be guaranteed those victory points. You have to decide that for yourself if it's worth that sacrifice. But they are so ungodly useful to have, especially considering that they can be sent back to base, they can be rearmed, and they can be brought back out to lay waste again. God, they're so useful. I love these things. But it's not even just those. You gotta remember, we have stuff like our Stinger missiles. We do have one of those that is attached to the Americans, and that can be used, flipped over, out and rearmed. It's not like it's a one-use thing. You get to rearm it. Same with your offboard artillery that the Americans, they do have an offboard artillery they could use. Works very similar to how this onboard artillery here worked. You can bunch it up depending on what you have. The Soviets have similar, let me grab one of theirs, all right, their offboard artillery that they can use. And this is something that you're going to decide before the game starts, before you really get stuck into it. You're going to decide, especially for the Soviets, because they have a buttload of artillery, of helicopters, what formations those assets are going to be attached to before the scenario even starts. And don't forget, you have that higher HQ right here, this one right here. And if you attach those offboard artillery assets to him, right, damn near anyone right? Any other formation can be used as long as they're within his 12 hex range. But I mean, 12 hexes is pretty far. He can reach out and talk to somebody. Can be used to call in. You do have to do that command check to make sure it's valid, basically like a morale check. But then you could bunch up and have a lot of offboard artillery being rained down onto your opponent, which is just beautiful. But again, I keep talking about all of this. All of it keeps harking back to these two player aids, and I just love this. I love this command system, right? And I think it is something that's easy to kind of screw up in the beginning, right? When you're first playing the game, you might forget, like I did, about the engagement level affecting it and how many times you're moving around. As you play the game, that's going to become second nature. But it's that push and pull, that risk reward of how far you're going to go down this track. You know, like for the Americans, they get to come back up 8 at the end of the turn. But maybe you just need that one more activation. You got to push it to 10, and that's going to start adding up. You're not going to go all the way back to the beginning of the track. You're going to have to start higher. Basically, if you give more orders this turn, then you give less orders the next turn. Right? That's how that's going to operate. And I freaking love that. You got to decide what's more important. Is it more important to act now? Is it more important to act later? Like, what is my choices here? When it comes to playing the game solitaire, there is something that I like with this snafu table that I think does lend itself to solitaire play, and that is this finished result that you can get. Now, that comes into play in the orange and the red levels of it. However, that gives you that uncertainty. That gives you that ability that the turn could end, or the formation's turn could end without your choice. Think back to World of War 85. If you played the game, the way the card draw worked for activating units, your formation's activation was not guaranteed. That was so crucial to how that game played well when it came to solitaire play. And this game has that. Doesn't have it quite to that level, but it is there, that if you push it just a little too much, you might end up causing your formation to not activate that order that you were, I got to do it, I got to push, and you move it down 2 on the track, and then you roll, and then you get a finished result. And now it's all for nothing. And now, not only did you not get to activate this turn, but you're going to be able to activate less on the next turn, right? Because you've pushed that counter, this command counter, so far up the track. I love that. It gives that randomness that you're going to need for solitaire play. So it works really well. I do like that. Another point that kind of goes towards the realism factor of it is the fact that our HQ units do have their command radius, right? So like here, our command radius for the 11th ACR is 3. So all my ground units had to be within 3. You remember, helicopters get double that. So the helicopters could be out to 6 hexes away. But basically a formation has to operate within a certain proximity of itself. You're not going to have someone, a single formation operating over the breadth of the battlefield. I mean, not unless things have gone really, really badly. You're going to try to kind of keep your formations together. And that's worked out really well in this game with the fact that you do have the command range. And that changes based on what your formation is doing. So if it's in tactical mode, you don't have as much room to breathe. You're kind of bunched up, you're moving along the road. But if you flip it over into deployed mode, well, now you get a little bit extra room. Your troops can move around a little bit more. You're deployed, you're ready for the battle. You've got a little more room to operate than when you're trying to just truck it up the road. And this is the first time I've seen it in a game where the inherent bonuses of the road type movement doesn't automatically apply. You actually have to deliberately put your formations into a certain type of movement, which in this case is march, to gain that benefit. If you're in deployed, you can only move 1 hex anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if you're just in tactical mode, you don't get that bonus. You don't get that bonus to movement. You can move obviously farther than you can in deployed mode, but you don't get that extra movement point allowance that you get if you are in march. It shows that everyone's packed up, everything's ready to go, and you're shooting up the road as fast as you can go. But it makes it to where you can't engage in combat. You are not combat ready. You're movement ready, right? And then obviously tactical is kind of the in between the two modes. So ultimately speaking, I really, really like Blackhorse. I think they did a really good job with this. I would like to see other games in the series. I'd like to see them pick other areas for potential, Third World War conflict. There's multiple areas they could pick and use the same system, right? Or even kind of expand it out. It'd be great if they came up with the next one in the series, and now it's not just a single map. You can attach the second game to the first game and have a bigger experience. So you really could start to get that NATO, Third World War, World at War 85 type feel where it's a lot bigger game going on. But for the price that you're paying for it and the amount of game that you get in the box, definitely worth it. I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but again, the only ding I'm going to give on the components is the fact that the counters have to be clipped. Yeah, you have to do it. And you really need to take care when you're punching them out. Use that X-Acto blade, come through, choppy, choppy, choppy. Make sure that they're cut out well, because I did have a couple that tore on me when I was originally pulling them out, and I had to actually go through with an X-Acto blade. These did not cut well at the factory. I would assume if they do a second edition and another print run that they will get that fixed up, so it hopefully wouldn't be an issue. But if you get one of these editions, yeah, they don't punch well. So make sure you cut them before you punch them out. But all right, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this series on Blackhorse. I really enjoyed playing it on the table. You guys make sure and check it out. It is from Flying Pig Games. All right, that's going to be it for me. Y'all take care. I'll catch you in the next one.